The damage that has been caused by the US intervention in Iraq is tremendous and goes far beyond the simple territory of Iraq. It has affected the whole region and everything we have witnessed since then, including terrorism in Europe, including the war in Syria, including, I mean, you name it, all the problems we have seen since about 20 years in the Middle East are the result of this US intervention in Iraq based on disinformation and based on lies. So the US bears this responsibility of destabilizing a whole region and creating multiple wars and generating terrorism. And at the end, because they wanted to get rid of terrorism, the US tried to use some terrorist groups to fight other terrorist groups. And that's why they end up to subsidize and support and arm groups like that they even consider as terrorists, like the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So we have an extremely perverse situation generated and created by the West, created by the US. This is the consequences of the decision of invading Iraq. I mean, we haven't finished to measure the consequence of that. And in my view, all the presidents of the United States and all the people who were in power since 2002, in my view, should be subjected to some kind of Nuremberg tribunal, because they all contributed deliberately to destabilization and creation of terrorism. In fact, they were the biggest sponsor of terrorism that ever existed on this world. All of them, including Obama, by the way. So we have here a situation that, in my view, is criminal, definitely criminal. And it's interesting because now when we talk about Netanyahu and all that, the Israelis said, yes, but the US has done the same in Iraq and all that. And they are right, in fact. The problem is one crime doesn't justify another one. So it's not because the US was criminal that you're allowed to be criminal. You know, in any case, it's definitely true that the West misbehaved massively in the Middle East. And that created all the problem we have. At the end of the day, the Brexit is probably the result, the indirect result of the policy of Tony Blair of attacking Iraq or joining the invasion of Iraq, creating all the problems you had in Iraq, in Syria, and all that. So these people are so short-sighted, and we can say it, I mean, because I don't have more polite word, but plain idiots, literally. And the word criminal is, in my view, perfectly adapted to these guys. And I think Tony Blair was, there was some ideas of putting him in front of a tribunal. These guys deserve not just a tribunal, but that's another topic. In any case, the consequences of the invasion of Iraq has been immense, and not just in the Middle East. Europe suffered a lot too, and a lot of the policies we have today in Europe, including censorship, including the reinforcement of security in any country, in fact, restriction of move, the development, the huge development of security and police forces in Europe, that would normally not be I could even go further and saying the evolution. If you look at the evolution of rapes in Sweden, for instance, that's a direct consequence of this flow of refugees that the Swedes accepted because, of course, these are brainless people. Uh, they just decided to have all these refugees, those poor refugees, and all that. And they have a surge in rapes. I think this is a country that has almost the highest, in some areas of Sweden, have the highest rate of rape and crime, and that's mostly because they have all those people that used to be Islamists in Syria, and they tried to flee out of Syria when the government of Syria won. With quotation mark, won the war, and these guys went into Europe, but they were criminals in Syria. They were still criminals in Sweden, and the Swedes now have an incredible problem with these refugees that they never screened properly, because they were fleeing Bashar al-Assad, and Bashar al-Assad is the Hitler. So these guys were probably good guys, but that was wrong. So we have you have a chain of events from the invasion in 2003 of Iraq. This chain of events led to the situation we have today in Europe and many parts of the world.